Hello learners, welcome to the series of lectures on Python programming. In this video, we are going to learn about one concept called as use of repr function in a classes and object. Okay, to understand this particular function, we will give an example. So before that, we'll see the definition of that. So repr function returns the printable representation of a string representation of string of a given object. That means you have to print the object in the string format, so we can use the repr function. Right. To understand this, we'll start with example. So I'll create a simple class for storing the student details. Okay, how to do that? So I'll say class. Okay, say I'll write class student. Okay, right. So in this case, I'll use the constructor to initialize some values. Okay, how to use the constructor? We are define. Okay, double underscore init method. Okay, double underscore init. Okay, so inside this, we are going to pass some parameters. So I'm going to store what is the name of the student and also their IDs. Okay, I'll say name, maybe a string. Okay, so str class. Next, we have ID, student ID. Say this is integer type. And also their percentage of marks. Okay, so percentage. Okay, this may be in float value. Okay, right. After that, I'm going to initialize the value. Oh, okay. I'll write instead of ID, because ID is a built-in function. Instead of I'll write st underscore ID. Okay, so now this becomes student ID. Okay. So I'll write self dot name. Okay, is equal to name. Next, I'll say student ID. Self dot stid student ID is equal to student ID. So next we have one more parameter, percentage. Self dot percentage is equal to percentage. Okay. And just while for the I'll go to the code formatter. Because we have to follow the Python proper way, right? So it use the so I created one class, say student class. In this, going to initialize the some variables, name, student ID, and percentage. Okay, right. So suppose I want to print all the names. Okay, so all the names of, or I can say all the variables. So I have to create one function, right? So I'll say define. So display and student. Now I have to print all the values, right? How to print the values? So I'll say print and use the print statement. And inside that, I'm going to use f string. So in this case, I'll use the name of the student. Okay, so how to write self dot name. Just a minute. Okay, I'll write self dot name. In the second case, also I want to print the ID. So self dot student ID. And also I'll print the value of percentage. Now I'm going to create the object here. Now student object, right? So st1 student1 is equal to student. Now when I want to create the object, I already have the constructor. I have to pass some values, right? So I'll say name will be say Rahul. Okay, so next ID will be say 123. Next I'll say the percentage obtained is 62.35. Okay. So when I want to print all the values, okay, now what I have to do? Oh, sorry, just a minute. 60 number lock is off. Okay, say 62.35. Okay, right. So when I have to print all the values, now I have to call the specific function, right? So I'll say st1 dot display students. Okay, I'll save the program and run. Okay, so I'll get the things. Okay, so I'll get the correct answer. Suppose if I have one more student, okay, so I have to say, I'll copy this. Okay, right. Copy this and I'll say student 2. Okay, I'll just change the value here 124 to understand the changes. Now in this case, if I want to print the all the values, so again I have to call the same function, right? st1 dot display, sorry, st2 dot display values. Display students. So when I run the program, I'll get the things for two objects, right? Both the object. Suppose what if in the case we have if I have the multiple objects. Okay, so in this case, I have to call the same function again and again, right? So instead of doing that, so one more thing, instead of calling the function, what if I print the object, right? So if I say just say print st1, okay, right. So when I run the program, so I'll get some object references, right? So I will create the object in this particular location, right? I won't get any answers. Okay. So now what this repr function will do? Now this function will use to uh, print the string representation of all the object. So what the things we are going to go or represent inside the repr function that will be printed when you print the object of this particular class, right? So in that case, we are going to, instead of creating this particular function, I'll comment this, and also I don't need these values. Now I'm going to create the repr function, right? So enter. So what's the function? We have the define double underscore repr, okay, repr function self. Now in this case, now what actually I want to, when I call any or when I want to print any object, I want to print the object representation of all the, or I can say what I mentioned, what actually I want to print. Okay, I'm going to write inside this particular repr function, right? So I'll say return. Okay, and I'll return all the things which I mentioned here. Okay, copy this and paste here. Okay, and I'll close the files. Right. Now, in this case, I created two objects. When I say print str1, now in this case, we'll get the actual answer. So when I say print, oh, just an error. We got the indentation error here. Shift tab. Okay. Just a minute. Okay. Okay, so I got the same answer while using repr function, right? So what I print inside this repr function, that will print, that is printed when I call the object. Now, when I in this case, when I have the multiple object, now I cannot use this directly, right? So now what I'm going to do, so just I'll create one class variable, say objects, okay, is equal to, I'll say empty say list. Now, each time when I create an object, I'm going to add this to the objects list. Okay. So how to add this? I'll write objects. Now, objects belongs to the like student class, right? So I have to access with the student name, student class name, student dot objects. Okay. Dot, I'll say append self. Okay, dot append self. That means the same object is added to the this object array. Right. So when I run this particular say print, okay, so when I want to print the value, I say print student dot objects. Okay. Okay, so now I'll get all the object which is listed, okay, separately. It may be any number of objects. Now that will be printed as, okay, with the help of repr function, I can directly print the values. Okay, so based on what you return inside the repr function, that will be printed. So if I need the class name, so I can use that also. So I can write self dot double underscore, just I need to use a bracket. Okay, inside this, I'm going to print self dot double underscore class. Okay, dot double underscore name. Okay, so now this will print the class name also when I run the program. So I'll get the student Rahul. Yes. Okay, now these objects are belongs to the student class. Okay, so now this is the one good habit of writing repr function inside a class, because you can view, okay, the what are the objects present in objects are created for that particular student class, and also which class they are belongs to. Okay, right. So now this is the uh, importance of writing, or I can say how we can write the repr function inside the class.